Hello and welcome to the sixth video in the onboarding series for gold and silver customers for workshop software. In today's session, what we're going to discuss is products and bundles. So let's get stuck right into it. So first of all, the management of inventory and stock in a workshop is a very, very important component because your products tend to be, and your inventory tend to be the primary source of the assets for the workshop, and they hold a lot of value when it comes to looking at the actual profitability and the actual value of the workshop itself. Quite a few workshops do find it a little bit challenging in terms of how to manage their inventory properly. And hopefully workshop software will show you a lot of different ways where this process can be streamlined and it can be managed much, much more easily. And so what we're going to do is come into the product table itself for a moment. And I'm going to discuss some of the various different properties that certain products have. So in the first instance, what I'm going to discuss is sublets. So if I come in here and I look at a sublet is very, very typically a service which the workshop outsources to a third party. And it's something that will never touch your inventory. But at the same time, you also do want to track both the cost of that sublet and also the sell price for the sublet. So the properties of a sublet when you enter it into workshop software are as follows. This is the description which will show up on the invoice line for the customer, all right, when you first set up the invoice. And what it is a prompt to the workshop owner or to the mechanic or whoever's setting up the invoice that they need to put in a description of the sublet itself, all right? So the item code that I've used in this particular instance is sublet. That's the description, right? It goes into a management reporting group called Sublets. All right. And also, right, there is no retail price for it, no cost for it, because sublets can vary from anything that you choose to use for a third party, such as a detailing job, a disc grinding job, a towing service, et cetera, and all of these different services which you may acquire in the workshop will have a different price every time that you use them. All right. So you never put in a retail price and you never put in a cost price, and you don't update the quantity because these will never ever touch your inventory. You cannot take a sublet off the shelf. All right. That is probably the easiest way of remembering whether or not you actually want to track the count of a particular product in workshop software. So that is the sublet. I'm going to save that for a moment. The next thing I'm going to look at is a miscellaneous part. Okay, so if I come in here and type in miscellaneous, all right, this is very, very similar to a sublet insofar as the properties tend to be very much the same. You never update the quantity. You don't have a retail price. You don't have a cost. It gets reported into a management reporting group called miscellaneous. Okay, so if I come in there it is. All right, and once again, there's a prompt when it goes onto an invoice for the user to put in the description of the miscellaneous part. What I would tend to recommend as a miscellaneous part, for example, is if you needed to buy a bumper for one of your customers. It's something you would never really carry in stock. You may get it from a wrecker, you may get it from another supplier. You certainly wouldn't want to count that in your inventory, but at the same time, you may very well buy it and you may very well sell it to a customer. Once again, you can't lift it off the shelf, so it's not going to be part of your inventory. It would literally be straight in and straight out on the same day necessarily that you bought it. All right, so that is a miscellaneous part. The third product that has very much the same properties as this is consumables. All right, so if I come in here and I type in CONS for consumables, all right, once again, it's consumables. This is just the description that goes on to the invoice, general consumables used. All right. It reports to a group called consumables. And in here, I do have a retail price because I on-charge consumables to my customers at $15 per invoice, for example. Right. And working on that premise, I also have to pay for my consumables. So I would generally work on the premise that you want to make at least a 50% profit or 100% profit on your consumables. So you would put in a cost so that you can actually track the costs against the revenue that you make for consumables. But the property, again, is that you do not actually count them. All right. They're going to be generally things like cleaners, solvents, rags, etc. Any kind of any kind of product which would be used in the workshop, but you're not going to actually sit there and count it out. Okay, that could be washers. It could be any one of a number of different things. Those choices are completely the workshop owners to decide. All right. That describes how consumables would be used. Now, the next one that I would do is I would cover off environmental levies. All right. An environmental compliance fee might be something like a waste oil disposal fee. All right. Now, again, this goes into a group. It reports in called levies. All right. I do have a price for it. I tend to charge it out at a liter price. So if I'm selling a customer 5 liters of new oil, when I'm doing a service on their vehicle or whatever, I need to dispose of 5 liters of dirty oil. Right. Now, in some circumstances, I may want to make a profit on that particular cost or that particular sale. And others, I may just sit there and go, no, I don't make any profit on it, but I am definitely going to cover my costs. Once again, a levy, right, is something you don't update the quantity of. All right. Now, that generally covers most of the non-countable products that you would have in workshop software. Right. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the product table for a moment, and we're going to look at a cabin filter, for example. What's very, very important in here is that you have the part number for that particular product, the description which goes on the customer's invoice. You want to have a product group for that. That would be filters, for example. This is telling me that I have -2 quantity on hand, indicating that I have actually sold 2 of these cabin filters, but I haven't entered the supplier invoice where I bought them. And that's a very, very important part of inventory management insofar as if you are selling things to customers, you are having to buy them from someone. So you need to track both the in transaction and the out transaction in order to balance your inventory and be able to report correctly on it. You'll see that we do count the inventory on filters, all right? We always do want to know what they are. And in here, I have the retail price of how much I'm selling it for, which is $12.25. And the cost to me was $9.15, including tax, right? Always try to remember that the retail price should include GST. That should be your GST inclusive price. So therefore, when you're looking at the cost and you're looking at the markup, you want to have the cost including tax, right? To ensure that you have the correct profit margin on your products. So I'm going to save that. Now, in the last several items that I've actually discussed, what I've done is I've kept referring to the product group, which is going to give you the management reporting on your inventory. What I'd like to do now is show you where these product groups are set up in workshop software and the importance of how they can actually help the workshop in terms of productivity and also in terms of clarity and transparency in the value of your inventory set. So I'm going to come over to the left-hand side. I'm going to go down into the settings. All right. And from there, I'm going to go into company lists. At the bottom of the company lists page, I have 2 particular sections. One is called product categories, and the other one is called product groups. All right. When you are entering your products, you are actually allocating them to a particular group. So in this particular instance, what I'm looking at is I have accessories, which are in a particular group, brake parts, electrical components, transmission parts, filters, oils or lubricants, and I've also broken up my labor into repair and into service. All right, because I may very well want to track how much revenue I'm making in repair work and how much money I'm making in service work. All right, so I have tires and so on. Now, that is the description which will show up on your reporting. Okay, and in here we have a listing for categories. Now, if I look at categories, categories are a more generalized view of how I can look at my sales and my purchases. So if I look at labor here, right, if I ran a report and I said between the 1st of January and the 31st of March, I'd like to see what my revenue was. And I want to see it on a more generalized basis. So I don't necessarily want to have too much detail. So I can sit there and break up my product categories, right, into, let's say, labor, non-inventoried parts and services, stock, and perhaps consumables and levies. So in order to actually get this to work correctly, what I'm going to do is focus on labor for a second. If I come into repair and I come across here, And I sit there and go, the category that this belongs to is actually labor. So I save that. The same thing goes for service. I come in here and go, that is labor. Okay. And now whatever revenue I make from these two particular product groups, right, will then show up as an aggregated number under labor if I run a sales report on product categories. Okay. The same thing will apply to your various different parts and product groups that you have for your parts. So in brake parts, for example, I may very well turn around and say, yes, that is stock. Okay. So that would show when I'm running my report, it would show under my stock sales. Okay. If I come into filters, again, that's stock. Electrical components are stock. Transmission parts, for example, they may very well be stock as well. All right. Same thing for tires. That's fine. And let's see what else we have here. So we have oils and lubricants. Yes, that's stock again. All right, miscellaneous. Now this is miscellaneous and the other one is sublets. All right. So these I would actually report on in non-inventoried parts and services. All right. Because as I mentioned, the miscellaneous parts, you never really count them as part of your inventory, but you do want to see how much money you've made selling them and how much money you've spent buying them. So I come in here and go, non-inventoried parts and services, and I would do the same for sublets. Now, these are simply recommendations for you. You do not actually have to use the product groups and categories that I've laid out here for you. This is just an indicator of how you may want to set up your inventory. Now, using product groups, okay, can be very, very beneficial to the workshop insofar as when you would like to do an inventory count on your product set, okay, in here, we could go into a stock take and we could do a partial stock take. So if I came into the stock take section, I could turn around and say, I want to do a stock take on all my accessories or all my brake parts or all my filters, my oils, etc., my transmission parts, my tires. So I can separate these and I can actually manage them very, very differently. If I come into filters for a moment, this will show me all the filters that I have in my inventory system, and then I can proceed to go and do a stock count on them, right? That will be covered in another video a little bit later on in the process. But this gives you an idea of how you can start to break the elements up in your workshop so that you can actually manage them much more efficiently and much more quickly. All right, so the next thing I'm going to discuss with you is bundles. So a bundle is an aggregation of both labor and parts. And the way that we lay them out in workshop software is as follows. This is a bundle for a minor service. So what I do is when I'm setting up a bundle, I put the item code in so it makes it very easy to search for it. I put in the description which I would like to show up on the customer's invoice. I do not allocate a bundle to a group because the parts that are involved in the bundle may span across several different product groups. Again, I don't update the quantity because I can't really lift a minor service off the shelf, all right? And there is no price for this, very simply because all of the components in any given bundle, for example, a minor service on a Daihatsu or a minor service on an Audi may be very, very different in terms of the cost and sell price for the products, all right? So we don't necessarily put in a specific price for a service. Now, once I have the description, right, the other thing we need to do is to come in here and change this over from a standard product, all right, to a bundled product, right? When we do that and save that, we now have a bundle. The next thing that we need to do is we need to put in all the elements that are in the bundle. So if we're doing a minor service, I've set this one up already. I use a placeholder, which is called ZZ. Okay, and that is simply because the Z key on my keyboard is the bottom left-hand key, and therefore it tends to be quite easy to use. If I want to add another line to that bundle, I'd simply go ZZ, okay, another line, ZZ, etc., etc. Very, very quick, very easy to work with. So I'm going to get rid of those. Now, I've determined that in doing a minor service, all right, I need a labor element. So if the minor service or the service that I'm carrying out or the bundle that I'm creating requires either repair or service labor, okay, I need to be very careful when I think about this because I need to go, if it's going to be service, right, this will trigger a service reminder for the customer in the future. If it is a one-off service, right, then I would simply use repair labor when I was actually putting the bundle onto an invoice. So I've determined that in the process of doing this minor service, I am going to need an oil filter. I am going to need engine oil. I may very well have a waste oil disposal fee. I may need some plug washer, a cabin filter, wiper blades, spark plugs. And I always tend to throw in 2 or 3 extra lines just in case there's something that I might have forgotten that I would like to include in the price of the bundle. All right. And then the last charge that I have is my workshop consumables charge. All right. So you can set up as many bundles as you would like, all right, within workshop software. And as I mentioned, you just put in the item code for them, the description you would like to show up in the customer's invoice. Remember that it is a bundle. It does not belong in any product group, and you never update the quantity on it. Okay, so once I have all the elements that are in my bundle that I want, I then save that. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how a bundle can be actually used on an invoice. And I believe that once you see this, right, it will give you a very, very good indication of exactly how you can actually save a lot of time and effort when you're carrying out your day-to-day work in the workshop. So we're going to come in. We're going to do an invoice for a customer. We'll make that customer Aaron Hall as per usual. There we have it. We link Aaron Hall's vehicle that he's bringing in for this job. All right, it's going to be his Mercedes. All right, once I can see the registration number next to the vehicle label, I know that this invoice is attached to that vehicle. Now, I want to use a bundle on this. So what I do is I type in min, all right, first 3 characters, that brings up a minor service, for example. I come in here and I go, great, that's it. It's a minor service. Okay, down here at the bottom, the invoice notes for the customer. These are templates, which we covered in an earlier video. This is a template for a minor service. That's what the customer will read. Over here, I have the job card notes, so I have an instruction set for the mechanic. Once again, it's for a minor service. And there we have it. I can now save this. Okay, now I have my bundle. So I need to then choose which specific products I'm going to use. In this particular instance on this Mercedes, for example, I might say that I need to use a Z79 oil filter. All right, so I just pick. This just indicates to me what I need to use on the service. It's up to me to pick which exact product I need for this particular instance. So in this case, I'm going a Z79 filter. It has both my sell price and my buy price, right? I might realize, oops, that's a bit of a mistake. I need a Z9 oil filter instead. I can simply come in there and change that over. And once again, I have my sell price and my buy price. The same applies for the engine oil. You may have various different engine oils that you sell. In this particular instance, I'm going to go, it may very well be 10W40. All right, I may very well sell the customer 4.5 liters of new oil. All right, it calculates everything out as per. Now here I go in my environmental levy, and I just go ENV because that's what I call my environmental levy in this system. All right, and it's clearly marked that it's a waste oil disposal fee. As I mentioned early on when we were discussing the products, right, I tend to work on a liter by liter basis. So if I supply 4.5 liters of new oil, I can go 4.5 liters of waste oil. That's what I'm going to charge for that. All right. If I have a sump plug washer, I may or may not use a sump plug washer. In this particular instance, I'm going to go SPW. All right. Now, granted, that's a sump plug washer for a Toyota, and we are working on a Mercedes. All right. So I go there and again. So same thing goes for cabin filters, wiper blades, etc., etc. The one thing that's also very beneficial about a bundle is if in the process of doing the service, it's realized that you don't need specific products, it's very, very easy to simply remove them from the bundle. All right, because we find that it's much easier to remove things from an invoice than it is to add things to an invoice. Now, the last thing I have in here is my consumables charge. All right, there we have it. Okay, and also I've forgotten to put in my labor. So in this particular instance, it's a one-off service because it's a minor service. So I'm going to come in here and go, I need to use repair labor. Right, there we have it. Okay, so, right, we have all of the elements. We have all the costings. They're all there. Everything was actually done very, very quickly. to lay out this whole, the admin side of this whole transaction for the customer has probably taken us less than 5 minutes, right? When you start to use your bundles and set them up, they will become very, very quick and very, very easy for you to work with. And you can basically provide a very, very professional looking document to your customers, as well as managing all of your inventory correctly. And you can do that within a matter of just a very few minutes. It does require a little bit of work in terms of setup, but once that's done, right, you will get a very, very high benefit out of that. So what I'm going to do is save that for the moment. Okay, and now we can start to look at what the documentation will actually look like. So here I've got a minor service. Now the way that I've set up my bundles in my company settings is I've said I just want to see the bundle name and the price for the bundle. Down here's the description for the customer. Down here would be my banking details. There's my customer information. There's the vehicle information. And of course, our workshop information. What I might decide to do is I'm going to go back into workshop software. And in the same instance that I'm actually working with this, I'm going to come in, I'm going to change the way that the bundle presents itself. So if I come into the company settings and I go into settings themselves, go into the invoice settings, here I have my bundled item print style. So if I change this over to bundle name and items, which is line items, then I will also get the line items that I'm using on the service and the line item pricing. So I'm going to save that. Okay. Your choices are, your choices are going to be bundle name and line items with line item pricing, bundle names and line items with bundle pricing, or bundle name only and the pricing for it, which is what we first saw. So I've changed that over to there. That's great. Save that, not a problem. And we're going to go back into Aaron Hall's invoice for a moment. We come into Aaron Hall and we come into his record. I can now find his invoice. That would be this one here, I believe, 26th of May. There we have it. The same information is still here, and this time when we look at the invoice, it's going to look slightly different. So there we have it. Okay, a description of all the parts that were used on the job: Ryco genuine oil filter, genuine 10W40 oil, etc., etc. All right, along with all of the pricing for that. All right, that is a brief overview of how you manage your products and how you can set up bundles to greatly optimize the use of workshop software within your workshop. Thank you very much for watching the video, and please stay tuned for the next video.